Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. This is the Thursday, February 2nd meeting of the City of Kalamazoo Planning Commission. Thanks for everybody for being here in attendance. Can we get a roll call?
Harrison?
Here.
Milliken?
Here.
Phelps? Patelko?
Here.
Pitts? Swan? Here. And we know that Commissioner Bias will not be here this evening.
All right, thank you very much. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes this evening.
Okay, with that then, can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Patelko, second by Harrison. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. We also have the minutes from the December 1, 2022 meeting. Are there any changes, comments, questions from that meeting? Or the minutes? Seeing none, can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
Move we approve the minutes for the December 1 meeting.
Motion by Burgess. Is there support or a second?
Second.
Second by Patelko. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Any communications and announcements?
We do have one, and I'll kind of hint it out now. So you are going to be guided by a new staff member starting next month. Bobby Durkee is here, and I'll let him introduce himself during the city planner report. Pete Eldridge took a different role within the city. He got to keep the Zoning Board of Appeals, but not Plan Commission. So I'll let Bobby introduce himself later, but just kind of, we're pretty excited about that. So know that that is coming.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, Bobby. We'll look forward to hearing from you a little later on. Assuming nothing else, then we'll move on to public hearings. We've got one public hearing on the agenda tonight. And just as a reminder to everybody with the public hearings, everybody has, during the public comment portion, we will invite everyone to come up to the podium. You've got 3 minutes to give your comments. We ask that you give your name, your address, and there's also a sign-in sheet. Please write it there so that it can be spelled properly in the minutes. We will also give an opportunity for anyone who's listening online to call in and speak during the public comment portion pertaining to this item. Is this the phone number written up here? The phone number is 888-382-9556. And again, we'll take those calls during that public comment period. If you have public comments on non-agenda items, there will be an opportunity for that later on in the agenda. So I think we've covered all those bases. So with that, we'll open public hearing 2023.01, request for special use permit at 3651 East Cork Street for outdoor sales and service use.
Hi, thank you, Commissioners. So first case of the year, it is a special use request for the address of 3651 East Cork Street. It is a special use to allow outdoor sales and storage. Specifically, the applicant is interested in opening an enterprise, rent-a-car, and rent-a-truck on this site. The site, which is highlighted here, is the former Burger King on East Cork Street. It has been vacant for a couple of years at this point. If you could move one slide forward, Beth. I have a couple pictures of it. Normally, we go out and take pictures. It's a very big site, and I kind of thought these were a little more effective to show you the area around the proposed site. And I have it here in the circle. You can see that it is surrounded by a number of auto-oriented uses. Large parking lots, buildings tend to be set back. Next slide, please. Those include hotels and restaurants. There's offices. There's 2 men in a truck, some of the businesses that are nearby. And this is a shot of the property from Cork Street when it was still open. Next, thank you. This property is currently zoned community commercial. As you know, community commercial, or CC, is our most intensive commercial district. It is meant for auto-oriented areas. It is meant for areas that are adjacent to highways, interchanges, and other large corridors. Next slide, please. This area is also noted as commercial in our future land use plan. And just for reference too, the blue in the picture is industrial. So we know that this area is pretty intensively used. Next slide, please. So in staff making a recommendation, staff supports the request that's before you this evening. And you have in your staff report a very detailed report as to why we believe that this request meets the review criteria associated with a special use permit. But I'll just talk about a couple of them right now to summarize. So first is the location. The location is appropriate for this type of auto-oriented use. The zoning is commercial, and the uses around it are commercial, including other kind of truck rental with the 2 men in a truck, lots of hotels that kind of cater, and restaurants that cater to travelers on I-94, right by the Sprinkle interchange. Cork Street itself is a community connector in our street design manual. That is our most intensive street. Therefore, in this case, it actually matches with the land use and the zoning. So 2 lanes in either direction, and definitely has capacity to add this use in this area. There are no anticipated environmental impacts. I'll let the applicants talk about what they're going to do and not do to the site as it relates to impervious cover and maintaining existing landscaping. I think they have some plans that they can show you. The site has clear ingress and egress, emergency service can access it, and it has access to utilities as a already developed site. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and of course we have the applicants here from Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
Actually, I want to know why does this even need a special use permit? How? Because it seems like it would be, ready to go.
That's a great question. So right now, outdoor sales and storage requires a special use. Now, outdoor sales and storage is a pretty wide category, which could include outdoor storage of loose goods, like landscaping, or other, it could be a car dealership, because that's outdoor storage. I think that staff, as we go through updates to the code, it's something to consider. Do we need to break that into different pieces? Loose storage of material has a different impact on an area potentially than storage of kind of inanimate objects, right? But this is how it falls. So that is why it's before you this evening. It's a good question.
Any other questions? Yes?
Sure. Just in regards to environmental impact, you didn't have any concern. I was thinking about the building they're proposing to put in the back with including cleaning and washing vehicles. I imagine, was the volume of the vehicles to be washed not a concern, or was it that there's adequate wastewater processing there?
Yeah, that we believe that they'll be adequate for the site. I believe the applicant will talk to you about this, but it's also in your staff report that things like vehicle repair and maintenance are all contracted out to area businesses, and so things like oil changes and that type of car repair are not done on site. And so this is, when you think about returning a car, what happens between uses, and so the cleaning, the vacuuming of the inside, the detailing, to me is not, well, not to me, does not raise environmental concerns for this site.
Any other questions for staff at this moment? Okay, thank you very much. We'll hear from the applicant.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Ashby Donahue. I work for Enterprise Holdings. I oversee the property development real estate for the state of Michigan. Want to go over a few things before we get into the project, just to give you a little background on who we are as a company and who we are coming into the community. Enterprise Holdings, as you can see, we operate Enterprise and all the branches that come underneath it. We also operate Alamo National Rent-A-Car. What we're looking to do here is our brand for traditional Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which you see and know, which we have 2 already in the Kalamazoo area. Then also our enterprise truck rental, which today the closest location for someone in Kalamazoo is to drive to Grand Rapids if they wanted to rent a box truck for us. So looking to expand that market here. The business is really growing since COVID with the delivery and the box truck use. That business is really starting to, it's continuing to grow and grow and grow. So we think it'd be beneficial to open that here in Kalamazoo for the citizens of Kalamazoo. Next slide, please. Just little things that you may not know about Enterprise Holdings. We are privately held. We're not a public company. We are owned by the Taylor family out of St. Louis, Missouri. We have over 10,000 locations globally. We are 12th largest privately held company. We operate in 90 countries. We employ over 75,000 employees across the country or across globally. And next slide, please. Who are we in Michigan? We have 120 staff locations across the state. We employ 1,300 plus employees, 26 million plus in local and state revenue with taxes. We did close to 900,000 rental transactions last year in the state of Michigan. And probably the thing that we're most proud of is our partnership with the communities and local charities. As you can see, over $1 million in donations. That's one of our big compass points with the company, is being good citizens and partnering with the community. So like you were asking, Mr. Burgess, we only clean the vehicles on site. One good thing about Enterprise is we partner with the local businesses around the area for our oil changes or auto repair, all that stuff. We don't do any of that stuff in-house. We partner directly with businesses that are in the area, and we don't do it with just one. We diversify who we work with. We include certified diverse vendors, women-owned, military-owned. That's a big thing for us as well. So all that is very heavily community involved. Next slide, please. What we want to do with this property, obviously we want to open up Enterprise Rent-A-Car and Enterprise Truck Rental. The plan for the property, this is conceptually what we'd like to do. As you can see, the building itself, the old Burger King, it would be an upgrade. The old Burger King has been abandoned, or not abandoned, has been out of use for a little over 2+ years now. In the summertime, vegetation overgrows it. There's no landscaping. The building itself is starting to deteriorate. The Burger King blue roof is starting to fall apart. So we'd like to come in and put about $800,000 of investment into that building alone to bring it up to speed to our corporate branding standards. And you can see conceptually what we would like to do to all three sides of the building. Obviously, we'd meet whatever requirements there were with the city for permitting and whatnot, but conceptually, this is what we would like to look like. And I'll show you a couple other locations that we've done around the state. Can you see what it looks like? Next slide, please. The building we'd like to put on the back of the lot is our vehicle prep building. It's approximately 40 by 60. The only thing that goes on here is car washing, hand washing. It's not an automatic car wash. It's typically what you would think when you wash your car in your driveway. And to answer your point about the environmental concerns, we put in oil water separators, sand trap separators, so all of our water is contained to meet all city codes. We are environmentally audited internally 3 times a year by Enterprise, and we meet all of the standards that we have to. So all of our wastewater is contained. This site also is not in, I believe it's the Wellhead District for Kalamazoo. So, but this is actually the building that we would build on site. This is one that we just finished in Lansing, Michigan at a truck site there. The building itself, the paneling and whatnot, colors can be changed, whatever you guys like to see aesthetically, but generally it's a pretty vanilla building. We try to put it in the back of the lot so customers don't see it. It's only our employees that are on it. For the lot itself, we don't plan to make any, we're not going to expand the footprint at all. We're going to use it as is. We're going to improve the actual front building for our customer transaction area, open this, keep the lot as it is. We'll put together a landscape plan that will go through site plan approval, obviously, to get approved to make sure, to kind of clean up the area. But we'd like to keep, we'll keep the wooded spaces as is. The parking lot will stay. We're not going to impact any of the natural areas or anything like that. Next slide, please. This is our proposed site plan, just kind of what we had in mind for where we'd park cars, where we put trucks. A lot of questions that we get asked when we come in and we say we want to open truck rental is, hey, how many trucks are you going to have on site? They're big. Where are they going to be? Our truck business is account-based. So we don't have these trucks generally sitting on our lot. They are out to commercial customers for long periods of time, 2, 3, 4 months. 2 Men in a Truck, who was mentioned in the earlier slide, they're one of our customers. They rent the trucks from us. So it's not necessarily like when you think of Enterprise Rent a Car in the retail, where you come in, you rent your car, you wreck your car, you come in, hey, I want to rent a car. That's not really how it works with truck. Typically, you're not going to come in and say, hey, I want to rent a 26-foot box truck. It's going to be for a commercial account. So there's a misconception that those will be sitting on the lot. Those are generally going to be out on long-term rental, so they won't actually be on our lot as our other rental cars will. We indicated some of the things that to meet the special use requirements, you know, the landscaping around the edge, whether it's going to be a privacy fence or vegetation. We haven't figured that part out, but we do have that in our site plan, upgrading all of the lighting on site. We don't plan to touch any of the ingress, egress, both access points will stay the same, so traffic patterns, all that won't be impacted by what we're doing. Next slide, please. Question we always get, what kind of box trucks are you renting? What size? We rent all. These are pictures of what we have. The largest one that we have is a 26-foot box truck. We have a few of those that would go out. The majority of what you're going to see is the extended cab pickup truck, like the 250s, things like that, where you can tow, or the cargo vans, things like that. Not so much the heavy box trucks. Those will be out on rent for the majority of the time. One of the things that came up with the special use is the gross vehicle cargo weight. We don't have anything that exceeds 10,000 pounds, so it meets that criteria as well. Next slide, please. Some similar projects around the state of Michigan that we just finished. This is Flint, Michigan, Austin Parkway. This is car rental and truck also, so you can kind of get an idea of the aesthetic that we do. This opened August 1st. Next slide. This is Southfield, Michigan. This is a 3.5-acre ground-up build development that is scheduled to open April 1st. Also a car rental and truck rental look, so you can kind of see this is the same aesthetic that we'll have here with the field stone along the bottom, the box signs, the awnings. All of our buildings are the moderate white, so it's a uniform look. We want you to, when you see Enterprise, we want you to recognize it. We don't want it to have a Burger King look. We want it to have the Enterprise look. And that's what I have. Is there any questions? Or the next slide just says thank you if you want to go to it. But.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant? Yes.
I just wanted to know about any current connections to like local charities and entities in Kalamazoo. Do you currently have those?
We do. I can get you that information. I don't know off the top of my head. We have the Enterprise Foundation, where we have 2 branch locations in Kalamazoo. We also have the Portage Airport, where those employees are able to come and ask for money for specific causes that are special to them. So it's not something that's done at the corporate level. It's our employee level. They come to us and say, hey, I'm passionate about this. I'd like to give money to it. But I can, Ms. Harrison, I can get you who we partner with in the Kalamazoo area.
Other questions for the applicant? The question I had written down was what kind of trucks, so I was happy that you showed that picture, so thanks for including that in the presentation.
Popular question.
Yeah. You've done this before. No? All right. Well, thank you very much. If we have anything else, we'll ask you.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Well, at this point then, we will open the public hearing. Again, we ask if you have any comments, please come forward. State your name, address, write your name on the pad of paper, and you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident.
Okay, just so that we'll give her a chance for the clock to get kind of reset. I didn't want you to get cut off in 27 seconds.
Or the 5 minutes of this board?
It's supposed to be 3.
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident. In approximately 2019, Enterprise was proposing to open or establish a regional car rental center with car wash or car washing and a large truck rental at the former Wayside West on Stadium Drive. And that project didn't go through. I believe it was because that they had a problem with some of the landscaping requirements that were required by zoning ordinance. So maybe you can have staff come forward and please explain to us why that project didn't go through. And also, I was curious if when this one opens, if any existing enterprise locations in Kalamazoo County will be closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh.
Okay, my name is Charles Cherney. I'm from 41 Linwood, Battle Creek. I'm a member of the Kalamazoo Board of Realtors. I'm also an appraiser, old enough to have appraised this when it was a new Burger King. I've worked with some of the enterprise people on finding this site. They're moving from Portage in a small building near the airport to this, and I just want to speak that we're all going to take our real estate education on reuse of real estate. I thought this was a great use, and I recommend it because it's a good utilization of the site. It's not tearing down what's there. It's expanding, glorifying, modernizing, and all those good things for it too. So I want to speak in favor. Any questions of me?
I think we're good. Thank you.
You got it.
Any other comments from the audience? Okay. Is there anyone calling in?
No, there's no callers.
No callers. Okay. Then we will close the public hearing. And perhaps just for clarity, because it was a good question, if the applicant could answer, is this relocating an existing facility? Is it opening a new one? What's the?
You're relocating our Portage facility. That location, our lease is up in 3 years. The property ownership changed hands about a year, right before COVID. The person purchased it with the intent of opening one of his restaurant concepts. So he's already told us, when your lease is over, you got to find a new home. So that's kind of where this stemmed from originally, because we do have to find a new home, and obviously this truck market in Kalamazoo is one of our top targets.
Great. That's good. Helpful information. Thanks. Are there any clarifying questions for staff? Yeah.
Just a little bit about the timeline and expectation, knowing there's a 3-year gap before you have to move, and then we're doing this special permit use today.
The property, we would open it as soon as we can. The property that we open, the property we have today, we lease, and we have the ability to terminate that lease with a X amount of month notice to the landlord. But we would like to open this as soon as we can to get it up and going and get the truck. It's a better facility for our employees as well. Make people be happier coming to work in the new facility versus where we are. It was good I think we've been there for close to 18 years now. We've outgrown it. We also have the location literally right across the street. So we have 2 locations right beside each other, so it doesn't make most sense. And a lot of our business is more this direction.
Any other clarifying questions for staff? I vaguely remember the Wayside West situation, but most of those concerns are going to be site plan related, landscaping and screening and those sorts of issues. So they'll be addressed during site plan review. Yeah, okay. Good, no other? If not, then we'll take a motion to kick off discussion. A motion to approve the special use permit at 3651 East Cork Street to allow the outdoor sales and service use as proposed.
I move to support.
Motion by Harrison. Support from Patelko. All right, is there any discussion on the motion?
Just say they're a long-term business in our community, and they are expanding and growing, and keeping their connection to our community. And the part that I appreciate that they're repurposing the existing use of what's already there. So we're just taking something that currently exists and making it better for our community, and I think it'll be a good use.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion or comments?
I guess I'd say that it's fairly clear from the staff report that all the necessary requirements to meet the ordinance are met. And I would agree that it seems great to be using an existing space that hasn't been used. And it's kind of nice that that can be done without having to tear things down and rebuild as well. So, seems to fit well.
Good. Other comments, discussion? I agree. It meets the standards of the zoning ordinance for the special use. We'll have to go through site plan review. But as far as the special use is concerned, it meets the zoning ordinance standards, in my opinion, and I concur with the staff report. So, seeing nothing else, can we have a roll call vote?
Burgess,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Harrison? Yes. Milliken,
Yes.
Patelko,
Yes.
Swan?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. All right. City planner report.
Thank you. Beth, if you could put up that, you're welcome. The PowerPoint for this item. So, what I'm going to talk to you tonight, I have talked to you about before, but it's been a while, and the project didn't quite get off the ground last year due to a variety of other activities and programs and projects that we are running. It is an update of the zoning code, the commercial zoning code. So I'm going to lay out what we're doing and talk to you about timeline and those type of things. As you know, our zoning up to about 5 years ago was a code from 2005, and it lived in our municipal code, where all of our ordinances live. It lived in Appendix A. Appendix A was the zoning ordinance, zoning code. And after Imagine Kalamazoo, which laid out a whole host of reasons why the code needed to be updated, including matching, or aligning with, I should say, the future land use plan in the 2025 master plan, we started to slowly update the code. We chose a path of small updates, often following neighborhood plans or state legislation that was approved, and did small incremental updates over the last few years. And so those include things like the creation of the form-based Live Work 1, Live Work 2, and Node districts, which we then mapped in the north side and the east side neighborhoods. And we're poised to start that process in Edison and Vine right when COVID hit. We've updated the parking section in our code, and we have done natural features protection overlay district phases 1 and 2 in that time. We rezoned downtown, creating 3 downtown districts rather than the old central business district zoning. We have 2 marijuana or cannabis sets of regulations for medical as well as adult use. And last year, if you recall, we also did a small update based on application of the code over that period of time to make sure everything read clearly and was operating, well. All of those new updates, rather than putting them in Appendix A, we created a new zoning document, which also is housed in the municipal code in Chapter 50. So as we slowly review and take things out of Appendix A, they go into Chapter 50, which when we are done with this process will be the new zoning code. In the meantime, we are operating with zoning regulations in 2 documents, which is difficult, and we are trying to do as much as we can this year to make sure that we are down to 1 document. So with that, next slide, please. This is the table of contents of Chapter 50 and has been for a while. Several of those sections were reserved and didn't have any information in them because they lived in Appendix A. And so anything that is in red is going to have some number of updates through this process. Some of them are small and some of them are big, and I'm going to loosely talk about all of them right now, or at least the types of changes in each of these articles within Chapter 50, so we can kind of just understand the lay of the land of where we're going to go. Know that everything is tied, just about everything that we're doing is tied to commercial zoning. It is our goal to start an update to the residential code in the second half of the year. So that is also in the works. But right now, we're focusing primarily on commercial districts and the zoning map as it relates to commercial districts. Next slide, please. Don't need to worry about the specifics of, like, super detailed into this. I just wanted to demonstrate we have a lot of existing districts, some of which aren't mapped in the zoning code. They just exist as text only. We have a lot of unitasker districts that are very focused on one use, not allowing others, which has been problematic at times, has had variance requests come up against it, and is generally not very flexible with the way that we operate now, including most existing commercial districts don't allow residential, even though many of them are mapped in areas where there is residential, so you can see how that is problematic. So the point of this project was to review the existing zoning districts, figure out how we can collapse, what do we need to create, and so anything that's in that first column, which would be, I guess on your left, up there for those of you plan commissioners who are viewing the screen, anything that's in gray will be going away, and it will get mapped either with the districts that are in the middle column, 2 of which are new. And if you go to the next slide, Beth, I'll start to talk about those 2 new districts. Again, this is just a preview. We are going to have a presentation at every Plan Commission meeting between now and when the item goes to approval to talk in detail about each of these sections, to provide you with information about the draft and where we are in the outreach and engagement process too. But just to kind of provide a lot of background, because I know this is a lot of changes to an already big document. And so we're going to try and take this slow and go through it piece by piece. The first district that we're proposing to add to the code is commercial node. We already have a neighborhood node district. Both of these exist in the 2025 master plan in our future land use plan. It designated both neighborhood nodes, which are small, walkable, mixed-use centers like Vine and West Edge in the Vine neighborhood, Washington Square in the Edison neighborhood, and commercial nodes, which are bigger, don't just serve the neighborhoods directly adjacent to them, but serve a wider area as well. So they get this mix of folks walking to them from the adjacent neighborhoods and driving. As it turns out, most of these in the city of Kalamazoo also have a grocery store, which is one of the reasons why they attract patrons from more than just the adjacent neighborhood. So we're talking about Vine between Howard, West Edge Park, Crosstown, where Midtown Fresh is, Oakwood Plaza, Cork Lane at Cork and Lovers. So plazas that kind of serve that dual purpose that are definitely bigger than those you find in the neighborhood, the smaller neighborhood nodes. The second district that we are proposing to create is Community Commercial 2. We're keeping Community Commercial, and so this is Community Commercial 2. It is meant to be for smaller, medium-scale commercial mixed-use areas. It is most often going to be found on our main corridors, but where residential hits those corridors. So think about where residential on Burdick or Southwest Edge, before you get to Kilgore, and it starts to get big again in terms of size of buildings and lots. And so a lot of residential streets that tee in or go across the main corridor. They have small commercial there, often strip centers. Some of them are up front, close to the street. Some of them are back. And you find those in lots of different areas. And so those are kind of good representations in your mind of what CC2 is compared to community commercial, or CC, which is what we just talked about. Larger lots tend to be closer to the expressway, serve not just a city purpose, but often a regional purpose. So think about Cork and Sprinkle, Drake, and Stadium area, Drake up at West Main, those areas, kind of the larger lot commercial. Next slide, please. So those are the two districts that we're proposing, and again, I will get into lots of detail as we go. I'm, again, just trying to kind of set the stage for you for what will change. In the third article, in addition to adding those zoning districts and removing the other ones that we had grayed out, we're going to have a new zoning map. There's about 2,000 parcels, I believe, that are going to be impacted by this map change. It's a lot of parcels. We have a lot of commercial zoning in the city right now, much of which is actually not commercially used. A lot of it is residential or some mix of uses. Again, with our goal of trying to get as much stuff, as much stuff from Appendix A into Chapter 50, we're going to take a couple of other districts that aren't really going to be changed, but just need to move to their new home. This includes institutional campus. You all recently dealt with Kalamazoo College's institutional campus master plan, so that district will come over to Chapter 50, as well as our planned unit development district, which is one that you have not dealt with, and actually we haven't dealt with in more than a decade, I would guess. But it's a district that we keep on hand. It's meant for very large developments that are kind of unique, and so it allows flexibility in its development standards. So we're bringing that over. You know that the zoning code now, and we talked about it with the case we just heard, that we use street types to help us think about land use, right? Because you want to make sure that the street and the land use are working together, like we saw on Cork Street out near 3651 that we just heard about, where auto-oriented uses on a large street. And so we have right now in our zoning code a street type map. We have since updated that through the street design manual process. And so we're going to be updating what's in the zoning code with the street types that were worked out with the street design manual. Next slide, please. Of course, if you're adding new districts, what do zoning districts do? They talk about use and they talk about dimensional standards, right? Setback, height, does it allow a restaurant? Does it allow a coffee shop? What have you? So accordingly, for adding new districts, we need to update both the use table, the accessory use table, and the zoning standards with those new districts and incorporating those. We're also going to make a couple of other small changes. The state has adjusted the some of the definition of marijuana and some of the adult use license types, and so we'll be updating our code accordingly, or proposing to update our code accordingly. That includes things like we already allow micro businesses, which is a marijuana business that allows for small scale production, processing, and sale all on site. They've adjusted that and created a second license type that's very similar to that. It's called micro business license A, so we'll be specifically allowing that in our code. So some of the changes are things that come from the state that we're opening up the code, so it's appropriate to make those changes now. Other things are, we have rules in our general municipal code where, again, where the zoning lives, but things that dictate all the other ordinances in the city, right? Fire code, building code, and we have a code on animals, of course. In that code are things like our rules for keeping backyard chickens and rabbits, and those should be in the zoning code because they specifically talk about the setback from property lines and those type of details. That is a zoning issue, not a general municipal code issue. So we'll be taking some actions that are cleanup to make sure the regulations are in the right location. Next slide, please. Parking overall will not see a lot of changes. However, the city is debating through this process if we want to change how we regulate parking. Right now, we have a minimum amount of parking that every use must supply. We also put a cap on the amount that a use supplies because we want to be very mindful about impervious coverage and stormwater, and, also the opportunity to think about, is the use very auto-oriented or not, and, what does that look like, and making sure that we're guiding development the right way. Many cities across the country, including many in Michigan, are dropping the minimums and just setting a maximum. And so we are considering how that might work in Kalamazoo and if that is something we want to do. Now, we already have many areas that are parking exempt, meaning any new development that goes in there does not need to provide parking. Places like all of downtown. The neighborhood nodes, right? Small walkable areas of development don't need to supply parking, or are exempt from supplying parking. Really small buildings, uses that are under, I believe it's 2,000 square feet, don't need to provide parking. And that's recognizing that we are a built-out community with a lot of small lots and a lot of small businesses, and adding parking to a site can be onerous and not always make sense based on its location. So we're weighing all of those elements, and when it becomes before you and to the public, we'll have that conversation. The variances that we get for parking these days are not generally to reduce the number of parking spaces. It's actually to go over our maximum cap. And so we are going to do two things surrounding that. One, we're going to give a little more guidance on when a variance will be most appropriate when you're asking for something that's over. We have a lot of credits and shared parking opportunities that exist in the code, and so things like, are you taking advantage of those? Do they exist in this case? So it doesn't necessarily have to be provided on site. We are also going to create a second overage percentage. So right now, if you want to go over, you can go over 10% of the minimum amount that's in the code everywhere, whether you are at Arboretum and Drake or you are at Vine and West Edge, and those are two very different areas. Vine and West Edge, on-street parking, in the middle of a neighborhood, lots of bus service, walking distance of a lot of things, versus no on-street parking, higher speed road, multiple lanes, less opportunity for shared parking. And those two places are different, and maybe we need to treat them different in terms of the overage number. Next slide, please. So this will be a whole new section that is being moved from Appendix A to Chapter 50, and this is landscape and screening, so landscaping and fencing. We have the opportunity to make sure that this new section is aligned with our Natural Features Protection Ordinance and our Community Sustainability Plan, which does call out some goals on landscaping and tree canopy coverage and other things. So we'll have the opportunity to set goals associated with those plans. We also have just it hasn't been looked at since 2005, so we have the opportunity to streamline and clarify the standards in the document to make it easier to apply both on staff's end as well as applicants' ends. Next slide, please. Signs and lighting. Signs we've talked about a lot. We wrote this section 2 years ago now, I believe, and held on to it to do with the commercial code. We talked about it publicly. We shared it with our sign contractors in town. We'll do that again. And remember that the main point of the updates for that section were, one, to bring it to Chapter 50, but also to illustrate all the different sign types, provide very clear regulations, and of course now we need to make sure that it applies to the new districts. Lighting. Lighting is a section that exists in Appendix A. We'll be bringing it over with this move, and we don't anticipate any major changes to this section right now. Next slide, please. So let's talk about timing. We are in the process of creating that draft map. We're in the process of editing the text, working with the city attorney's office, working with staff in a variety of, that focus on a variety of planning aspects to get a draft document out, and we expect to do that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Our goal is, for those of you that recall Natural Features Protection 2 process, there was a lovely interactive map online, and you could roll over your property or another property and say, here's what it is now, here's why it's changing, and give information. So everyone will be able to view that for any properties that are changing. We're going to be sending a postcard to every property owner and tenant within the next month, 2 or 3 weeks, to say, hey, please go review this map. The new draft of the code is out. Understand how it impacts your property. We're going to do meetings. We're going to set up one-on-one office hours for people to come answer questions. And so we'll do all of that over late winter and early spring. I would guess, May, June, July will be kind of the approval process start. If it slips a month because we need to do more engagement, then it slips a month. But that's approximate timeline just for your reference and the community's reference. So we do expect to have things live in the next few weeks. As soon as we get it live, we'll send the postcard out. So those that are impacted by the change will be able to get information as to what that means and be able to ask questions, concerns, and discuss with staff. And that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I know it's a lot. Oh, you can close it, Beth. I know it's a lot, but again, we're going to talk about this every time. We're going to go section by section to give you the chance to ask questions in a public setting so we can kind of educate ourselves on all these changes.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
One quick, you said, excuse me, you said 2,000, these are 2,000 commercial parcels that will be affected by?
Approximately. Some of them are parcels that are manufacturing that should be commercial. There are situations where we have commercial properties that really should be residential. And so there's a big mix. The vast majority are, being rezoned to a new commercial district. But we do have a couple of those other ones. If you look at the zoning code today, you'll see in many places the commercial zoning turned the corner and kind of captured a few residential lots in many locations. And those lots are used as residential now. They're the size of residential right now. And so where it's appropriate, we are putting them back as residential. But it's a lot of parcels.
Other questions, comments? This is, it's going to be a lot of information. And if I think about what's our role, what's our job, and if you really just scale it down to the minimum, we're going to have a public hearing in somewhere between, at least one public hearing, somewhere between 4 and 6 months. And it's naive for us to think that there's not going to be a few people out there that aren't going to be happy with what's happening. So our job is to get educated enough over the next 4 to 6 months so that we can weed out those comments and understand the merit and the relevance of those comments. Is this someone who just doesn't quite understand and needs some more education and needs a little time with staff and pointed in the right direction? Or is that, oh boy, yeah, something was missed and we need to pull that particular element out and continue on with the other 999 points in the document, or stop the whole train for a minute, etc. But we are not going to become experts at staff's level in everything over the next 4 to 6 months, but we need to become educated enough so that we don't react with the same emotion that may get presented to us at those public hearings. So that's what I would have to say. So, all right.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Bobby Durkee to come up. I know we don't normally talk about the site plan section, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that we do, although of course he is here for any questions. Bobby is currently planner for us and manages site plan and will be transitioning into the assistant city planner role. I more wanted to give Bobby the chance to say hi and introduce himself to you.
Thank you, Christina. As Christina said, my name is Bobby Durkee. I've been employed in the planning division since 2012. When I was hired as zoning inspector in the department. The zoning inspector inspects complaints, helps citizens, sits on the site plan review committee, does all sorts of zoning work. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I moved into this role as planner. And then my role primarily is to manage the site plan review process. I prepare the list, work with the committee, address a lot of the concerns such as landscaping. Where does that SOAP go? Not me in particular, but the committee as a whole. So, I'm very familiar with a lot of the existing ordinance. I work on a lot of the changes that we're proposing ahead of you in the months ahead, and I look forward to being able to be part of that, explain it to the commission and the community as well. So, in addition to that, if you guys have any questions for me or any questions on the site plan table, let me know.
Welcome, Bobby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any hard, grilling, tough-nosed questions for Mr. Durkee?
Not today.
No? All right. Be prepared.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything else? All right. I guess before you sit down, are there any public comments? I guess, yes, from the audience. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items? Again, the same, we'd ask that you give your name, address, and 3 minutes.
Good evening. Jeff Messer, city resident. Since May, I've been a volunteer with Rank My Vote. It's a citizens initiative that seeks to amend the Michigan Constitution in 2026 in order to establish ranked choice voting statewide. As an educational effort prior to that, we are collecting initiative petition signatures in large cities across the state in order to amend city charters and locally establish ranked choice voting. A petition drive for the city of Kalamazoo is currently underway. We have collected approximately 1,900 signatures towards our goal of 3,000 by mid-May. The City Commission then has the option to either adopt the charter amendment or allow it to go to a vote of the citizens this November. Ranked choice voting is a change to the way we vote that we believe will increase and improve the quality and diversity of candidates by allowing voters to express their true candidate preferences without fear of wasting votes or voting for the lesser of two evils. For those unfamiliar with ranked choice voting, please visit our website, rankmyvote.org, where MY is MI, the postal abbreviation for Michigan. The national website for ranked choice voting movement is fairvote.org. For those who are familiar with ranked choice voting and are ready to sign our petitions, I'll be canvassing at the Vine Neighborhood Association's Midwinter Festival this Saturday evening from 4:30 to 7:30 at the Vine Neighborhood Association office and adjacent businesses on South Westnedge Avenue at West Vine Street. For future locations where I and other Rank My Vote volunteers will be canvassing, please follow my Facebook campaign page at facebook.com/messer4kzu. That's facebook.com/MESSER4KZOO. You can also enter Jeff Messer for Kalamazoo in the Facebook search box. And for those who are in the chambers tonight, you would have to meet me outside the building if you want to sign my petition, because City Attorney Robinson, who is here to my right, has informed me previously that there's a rule against circulating petitions inside City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? All right. Do we have any call-in comments?
No, there's no call-in comments.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Pradle, City Commissioner comments.
Happy New Year as well. First time seeing y'all in 2023. Speaking of which, our last meeting on January 17th, we adopted a $300 million budget for fiscal year 2023. That's a 22.2% increase in our budget from the previous year, which is largely because of capital improvements that we're making to the community. So if you thought last year looked ambitious with cones and progress and construction and non-motorized modes of transportation popping up everywhere, wait till this year. It's going to be pretty jam-packed. And that includes $111.1 million of capital improvements that you're going to see this year in just 1 year. Water, wastewater, local streets, and major streets. So a lot going on. And the thing I'm particularly proud about is last year when we had a retreat and through a public survey, and we selected 5 goal areas: youth, housing, infrastructure, safety, economic development. And so you'll see a lot of those elements in this year's budget as well. It also, I'm really excited as well because, when you're creating that much growth, you also have to keep up with that capacity. So one of the things last year we had is we adopted our first ever sustainability plan. We are now hiring a position to manage that plan moving forward. We also created some positions in finance and accounting because, if you're doing a lot of capital improvements, that means there's a lot more RFPs to submit out there and invoices to get out or get paid. We also have another grant writer we're bringing on to our team to help increase financial capacity, and just other positions in public services to help with their growth. We also were bummed to learn earlier in January from Mr. Porter that he withdrew his name from consideration for our next city attorney. So I served on that subcommittee after about 8 months of work to try to keep that community centered and find a great new city attorney. We're disappointed, obviously, but we're not going to let that deter us from finding a great next person. We've been very blessed. City Attorney Robinson has agreed to stay on through the end of June, but we also wanted to make sure to thank him for the commitment he's made for him and his family for the last, I don't know however many months, so we offered him a one-time bonus, and then also increased his salary to the max cap that we would have offered the next person as well. We're hoping to have somebody in place by early summer, if possible. And then third, I just wanted to mention as well, I just talked about the brand new budget for 2023. We have a city commission retreat coming up in a couple weeks here on February 18th, which is a Saturday. It's going to be from 8:30 to 3:30 at the Foundry. And the purpose of that retreat is effectively to start thinking what's going to happen in 2024's budget. So just wanted to share those major things going on with us as well, and I wish you all a great month ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Any planning commissioner comments? Yes, go for it.
All right. I do have one thing to let the public know. With the Kalamazoo County millage, a lot of people have voted on it, was trying to figure out, okay, what's next? Well, next, the county has now opened up a portal where when you want to do home improvements, you can go onto the county's website to apply for that. If you're a developer looking to get properties here in the city of Kalamazoo or throughout the county, you can definitely apply for that as well to see where you fall into place. Because as we know, low-income housing is still a huge thing, and we still have a housing crisis. And so this would be a big opportunity if you are interested in applying. The application process does close February 17th. So make sure that you apply as soon as possible so that you can get the proper funding, because here in the city of Kalamazoo, we're definitely looking to grow, to better the properties that we already have, and then also bring new developers in so that we can add in more housing.
Awesome, thank you for that. Other comments? Well, I will, just for the knowledge of everybody out there, but also a reminder to everybody here, we were notified 2 days ago that Mariah Phelps will be resigning from the Planning Commission. I don't know, did she send that to everybody or just to, oh, okay. Just so, I didn't look at the, who was copied. So, okay, so Mariah notified at least me and Christina that she's resigning from the Planning Commission. Too much going on, basically. So we're sorry to see her go. She was a good contributor to the commission. And that creates an opening, and then we are getting close to that time where terms come over, and I had, all I'm saying, we're going to create a membership committee, and there's going to be some culling of applicants and interviews and all that sort. So we know we'll have at least one vacancy. There may be others, I'm not sure. So if you know of people in your circles that would be good folks to serve on this board, or the ZBA, which I know has been looking for people as well, send them staff's way, and if you're interested in serving on that committee, let Christina and Bobby know, and I'm sure we'd be looking for help there. Did I cover it? Yeah, all right. And that is all I have. Thanks, everybody. 1 hour, that's pretty good. Have a great month, and enjoy winter while we have it. With that, we're adjourned. Thanks.